I'm Tim Sorrells, this is Brett Colleton, and welcome to Jackass.
Oh. No. Put it over your head. Dump it over your head. How much is left? That's not that bad. That's pretty good. Tim.
Pretty good.
Dude, I am so impressed. Can you show people what you just shotgunned? Because I think that is the most impressive piece of this. As a 35-year-old gentleman, the fact that you just chugged a Modern Times hazy IPA to fulfill your contractually obligated loss punishment is A+. Well done, my friend.
Thank you. I've got a little beard up my forehead now, but it's all right.
No,
we're
you
good.
did. Hey,
yeah, that's
7.5%
or 7.2% on that one. So that's a
right to your head.
Yep.
Brutal.
Well, might as well just pour another one here, right? Just keep on
At a kid.
keep this train rolling. And we were talking about this before the podcast started here. I still don't think this is contractually obligated, Chris. I think Maddie's full of shit. You think she's some hot shot? You think she's some hot shot lawyer? But we're doing this for fun, It's what this podcast is supposed to be.
Don't be a little bitch about it, okay?
Hey,
shotgun your beer when you have to do it, and then next year, let's make Lizzie do it live on the podcast.
Yes.
If you could win a game. So
hey, I beat her the first week of the season, or the second week of the season. So we started off, and she was talking shit, and I beat her. And my team was good then. And then every single person got hurt at some point throughout the year.
I tried to show off. My wife bought me these fun glasses.
That's fancy looking.
For Christmas.
So you are using them early?
Ooh. Yeah, because we're going to Colorado Springs this weekend to spend Christmas with all of the Colletons, which should be a lot of fun. What are you and the fam doing for the holidays?
Everybody's coming here. We small family things. So we always end up hosting at my house for really every holiday. Everybody's here for Thanksgiving. They're all going to be here again for Christmas. And when I say everybody, it doesn't really mean much because it's like there's 8 of us total of adults. So
does everybody fit in your guys' house?
Yeah, it's
cool.
Kitchen table's big enough. It's really not that big of a deal. And the backyard is built out now that we have a nice patio set up with the TV out there and heaters. So it's pretty easy. Like father-in-law is a big sports guy who wants to sit and drink his Coors Light. So it's put him in front of a TV where sports are happening and he's occupied for the rest of the day.
How do you feel about the Christmas games? The Netflix Christmas games.
I think it's really cool and entertaining for us as fans. For fantasy football, I think it's ridiculously challenging to have this where you're going to have Monday Night Football to end the week with the Packers playing the Saints. Yep. And then Wednesday, you're going to have a game. Thursday, you're going to have a game. Friday, you're going to have a game. And then Saturday and Sunday? Is that what it is? Or just Sunday?
I'm pretty sure it's Saturday and Sunday.
We're going to have like 5 or 6 straight days of games. And I think that's awesome. Rachel does not love this. When it was announced, I told her, and I've not reminded her that she gets to watch the NFL for 6 days straight. So she's going to be in for it. But we'll see. I think it's going to be great for fun. But in terms of how you manage a fantasy football roster with people who are hurt, questionable, all of the above, like you're going to be starting people on Wednesday that you don't want to start because the guy on Saturday, you don't know if he's going to play. It's going to be tough.
Well, yeah, and just, Thursday night games are always wild occasions. So to have a Wednesday game, a Thursday game, Saturday, Sunday, it's just going to be a lot of craziness. So we'll see. It's a little weird that week is the championship week. It throws a lot of randomness into our whole thing, but I don't know. I think it's fun. Like, why not? If everybody has a formula and then you get to the championship, why not throw that randomness in just to see how everything shakes out? I think it'll be a lot of fun. So
I pulled up the schedule for that week, and it really is just going to be a lot of people. Whoever's in the championship, you're going to spend 5 or 6 days worrying about your team and questioning your decisions. So I'm not sure how you think about fantasy football, but I enjoy it. And like over the course of a week, like it'll pop into my head of like random thoughts of like, oh yeah, I should do this. Oh yeah, I should do this. And it kind of just like lives in the back of my brain, like on like 10% or something at all times.
For sure.
So if I was in the championship, week 17 with games every day where I need to be aware of what's happening, I feel like that would just drive me crazy. And it drove me crazy last year.
You said you pulled up the schedule. Before we get into that, I think that this past week was a really good like microcosm of that, because I feel very lucky that I got a first round bye and won my matchup the week before, because with Cooper Cup's 0 on a Thursday, I would have done nothing but shit my pants for 3 full days before I was able to like see how my team shook out.
Right.
To have one of your best players, have him slotted into my wide receiver 2 space, just put up an absolute 0 on an offense that like did really well on a Thursday was awful. So if you have the schedule, I'm curious, like who are the fantasy relevant people Thursday or Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday of that week?
So Wednesday, the morning game is Chiefs-Steelers. And Mahomes playing will be the big question mark for that one, depending on how relevant the offense is there. But I mean,
maybe Pickens doesn't play.
Pickens might have to. I feel like they need him back to be able to keep their spot in the playoffs at this point, or to win the division. So I feel like Pickens will be back. Everybody else in the Steelers, I don't know. And I'm the one who wants Pickens, so he's kind of irrelevant for our league at this point.
Kelsey, Najee Harris. There's some spice there.
Well, Pacheco
Steelers
too.
Defense.
Pacheco's back.
Pacheco's good. Steelers defense against potentially Carson Wentz.
Right.
That's a good one as well.
Who
plays on Thursday?
Well, there's two. There's 2 Christmas games. The afternoon game at 1:30 is Ravens-Texans, which has plenty of pieces in that one.
Wow.
So that'll be a good game too.
Okay. Yeah.
Then Thursday it's Seahawks-Bears. Questionable. I mean, there isn't. The big piece will be who plays a running back for the Seahawks, whether it's Walker or Charbonnet, and that'll be Sam's decision when the time comes.
Yep.
And Bears, there's no one to play for the Bears anymore.
Yeah, but all the Seahawks wide receivers, like I still have JSN in my lineup.
Yeah.
I think Keenan Allen has been really good for a little while now.
He's on Katie's team though, so it's Katie's doesn't have anything to worry about at this point. We'll get to that one later. Saturday, there's 3 games Saturday. Chargers, Patriots, Broncos, Bengals, Cardinals, Rams.
Wow.
And there's pieces all over that too. Then Sunday, there's the usual slate of games Sunday. And then Monday is Lions, 49ers. So, I mean, there's also plenty of pieces in that one. So it's legitimately 6 days straight of football where there are important players in every day. It's not just like you got, I don't know, what was the matchup this past Monday where it's just the biggest snooze fest of games where it was Raiders and Falcons. Like there's pieces there, but the game sucked. And then it was Bears and was it Bears Lions?
No.
I have the schedule. I can pull it up and look.
It was Bears and Vikings.
Bears Vikings, yeah.
Which was, I mean, we were all in the chat saying that it was the most boring. At least Falcons Raiders got a little exciting at the end, but like it was just a concept of ineptitude at that point.
Right.
I think it's important that we address our unavailability as podcasters. You know, this has been 3 or 4 weeks now that we haven't had the podcast. What have you and the fam been up to? How's it been going?
Well, it's been good. It's all holiday stuff at this point. I feel like it really was Thanksgiving that killed our vibe on this one. It killed the routine for us. Trying to squeeze something in on Tuesday before Thanksgiving just didn't play out the way we wanted to. And I'm not sure if everybody else understands the world of marketing and sales teams at end of year, but it is not a slow time necessarily. So it was very much just busy with work and things going on. I know we talked, and your life is getting swamped with work at this point too.
Yeah, between travel for Thanksgiving, there was no way that was going to happen, and then I offloaded my stress onto you pretty hard the last 2 weeks of planning and my workload and stuff like that. So I'm glad we're back. I'm excited to talk about the playoffs, but it has been a little bit difficult with all the travel and stuff. To that point, man. I think we were both excited about doing a podcast before the playoffs started, and we just couldn't figure it out. But let's talk about the playoff bracket overall. Was there anything that surprised you? Anything that you felt weird about? What were your thoughts as we went into that last week of the season and filling out the playoff bracket?
I'm surprised that Danny made it in and Sam lost. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked all season about Sam being one of those teams that is going to be very good. And probably 5 or 6 weeks ago, we were talking about her, and we kind of thought that she was one of the 3 teams that would possibly get the bye for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Then you lose 3 in a row. She needs to win 1 and loses 3 in a row to miss the playoffs. I mean, that's got to be the roughest way to end the season on that. Like, looking hot, strong team, and then just falling flat on your face at the end of the year. That's the biggest surprise for me, because I expected that team to be here in the playoffs and talking about them tonight.
I won't lie. I'm glad that Sam is not in the playoffs. Like, all of the playoff teams are really good, and she would have just been another one that would have been scary to go against. That being said, I said on a earlier podcast that one of my favorite things about this league is I feel like it's very evenly matched, that we all do a really good job up and down. I think even at the bottom, like, Katie's her biggest sin was the fact that she took Christian McCaffrey first overall, which has cursed many a fantasy team across this year. But, we were just a few points away from me being 8-6, which would have given us 6 8-6 teams, and your little brother being 7-7. So, besides you and Katie, this league would have looked incredibly even, and that's really cool. 10-team leagues don't usually shake out like that, and so it's really rad that there weren't a ton of trades. There was a lot of waiver interest, but at the end of the day, this really shook out as a league where everybody did pretty well. One injury goes here or there, and this whole thing could have been shaken up, and I absolutely love that. I think that's a really cool thing.
Speaking of the deadline, I think that might have been our last podcast we had. We were talking just before the deadline happened, and the only real move was me and Alex, where I moved Devontae Adams and Brian Robinson for Cook, and it's looking like he's going to win that one with the way Devontae's playing.
Max said something to me that really hurt me to my core. He said that I was not a very good ball tickler. And Tim, I consider myself an incredible tickler of the balls. My goal this year was to make a trade with everybody in the league. I think I at least reached out to everybody about a potential swap, but one of the cool things is everybody had really good players, people that they didn't want to get rid of, and you kind of rode with the people that brought you to the dance. And so cool that it shook out this way, but I think that there's a different world in which there's a lot more player movement. And I'm excited to see, because I know my keepers are going to be very different next year. And so I'm super pumped to see how everything shakes out and who people are planning to keep as we go into next season.
So I think that was a very PC answer here, and I feel like you just read off a script to make everybody feel good about themselves. What you really meant to say is that they were all cowards and wouldn't trade and were too nervous to make moves that might shake up their team. I think that's the real spicy answer that you should have given.
When you are the best in the league, Tim, when you're number one, as it were, I feel like you need to be as diplomatic as possible. So I'm trying to be as modest as I humanly can until the point comes where I do not need to be modest anymore.
Fair enough. So I've been here long enough that I can say what I think here. And you can be graceful about it, so that's good.
I'll just say the last 2 times I played in this league, I got last and second to last, so I'm super fucking psyched that the worst I can do is 4th in this league.
Not bad. Yeah, I was trying to make other moves.
Full amount of joy.
I was trying to make other moves at the end of the year, like the last 3 weeks before the deadline, and just kept getting I can't move that person. I can't move. I can't afford to trade a running back, and it's like, yes, you can. You have you look at the big picture of this, and it's gonna feel bad, and it's not gonna feel good. But it's like if it helps your team, you got to do it. But just a lot of nervousness to pull the trigger all around.
I will say that I made what I think I told you this. I made an absolute godfather offer to Katie for Christian McCaffrey. And after making that offer, she declined. And then the next week came back to me right before the trade deadline and said, we should do this. And I got cold feet. And those cold feet meant that I was the first seed in our playoffs. If I had taken that, I might have gotten last, man. Like, it might have prompted her to jump, from 3-11 to 5-9 and drop me down and end up there could have been such a shakeup in our standings. So I feel very good about that, but there was trade possibilities out there that could have really made this a very difficult playoff season for a lot of different teams.
Well, we talked about this too, and I don't want to take any credit for you shutting that offer down and getting cold feet, but we talked offline about Christian McCaffrey, and you mentioned to me that you had made that Godfather offer and was turned down. And I kind of mentioned, I think that's a blessing for you because your team is very good the way it was, and you felt that he was going to put you over the top. But that's just so much risk with Christian McCaffrey and the Niners being bad. And at what point are they going to shut him down and just say, enough's enough, we're a bad team, our team's hurt, just let everybody coast through the end of the year and come back in 2025 with the full roster. And then he blows his knee up the next week.
Well, let's put a pin in that because I think that's an interesting conversation to have about a lot of our playoff teams as we go forward, getting into these later weeks with teams that are out of the playoff race, that are getting into the playoff race, etc. One thing that I asked you to do at this point was let's just recover the prize and punishment tiers of how we are looking at this point in the season. So if you would just give us a sense of who's making money and who's going to get a poop trophy at this point.
So as of now, the prize is first place $300, second place $100, third $50, and then whoever doesn't place top three but has the highest points for gets their money back with $50 as well. Last place is no longer the notorious dildo trophy because Kelly Lewis decided he's too soft to get it and that we need to be a family-friendly and welcoming group. So the dildo is no longer there, but there is a nice big toilet seat on it. So now it's the poop trophy. So it got an upgrade last year. I think Lizzie was our last. Actually, I should look it up. I can't remember who had it before Kelly should have earned it. It might have been Lizzie. She might have been our last person who No, I do remember. It was supposed to be Leslie Anderson. Leslie Anderson was supposed to be holding the dildo trophy. And then she failed to collect it from me before she moved to Washington, D.C. And then we decided as a group that she was not committed enough to be part of our team. And she was asked to take a step back.
Return the dildo trophy.
I'm not giving you this trophy, so I'm never going to get it back from you when you move to Washington,
D.C. Give me the dildo.
Yeah, so probably the first and last time I'll ever say that.
Right,
but yes, so we're looking at just to end that one. The four of you in the playoffs are more or less guaranteed at least $50 back based on how the points for is looking. The only one theoretically at risk, I should double check this first. I think if Alex loses this week and ends up in fourth, that he wouldn't get it. I think Brett Johnson would have a chance at passing him there based on what I remember of the numbers.
His money back, you mean?
Exactly, getting money back. So Brett Johnson would need Alex to lose this week and then also lose the third place matchup in week 17. But the other three of you guaranteed at least $50 back. And then we'll get into the rest of it in a second.
Sounds good. Let's blow through Wild Card Weekend. Tim, the third Sorrells Bowl of the year. Why don't you walk us through this?
I said in the chat, if I lost 3 times to Chris in one season, that is you need to take a step back and reconsider your decisions. Because every week Chris messages me and asking about his fantasy lineup. So if I'm beating myself 3 times over the course of the year, I couldn't live with that. That would have been tough. So I am thrilled this one played out in my favor. Going into the week, Chris was favored 138 to 127. Ended up, I won this one 159 to 141. It's not as good as being in the playoffs, but it sure feels good to never have my name on that loser's trophy. So that feels good. We're on year 10 of this league, and I haven't come in last yet. That's a victory for me at this point. Tough matchup for Chris, though.
Not getting last always feels great, and I would like to congratulate you on our trade working out in this sense, because the biggest piece of this, I think the place where you separated yourself the most was in your wide receivers. AJ Brown coming back from bitching and moaning about not getting the ball, and then also CeeDee Lamb having another hell of a game set you apart from this. So those teams were very evenly matched, but your stud receivers really showed up for you in this space. That was a well fought and very good win for you.
And I'm glad that Cook showed up too. 26 points out of him was a great victory there. You know, we talked about the trade between Alex and I, the James Cook for Robinson and Devontae. Would have been great to have Devontae this week. My team was very desperate for a running back with Brian Robinson being hurt, and we'll get into Lizzie's injury situation later. I knew I couldn't go into the playoffs with one viable running back and a guy who's going to be questionable, who hadn't played the past 2 weeks. I needed a move needed to be made, and it was definitely heavily skewed towards Alex if Robinson ended up being healthy at any time in the near future. Also, Devontae didn't look good for a long time, and he just all of a sudden he's turned it on. So either way, it played out the way I needed it to. Got a great week out of the Chiefs. Even with McCormick leaving the game early and Metcalf doing nothing, still had 159. So that felt nice. Because usually Chris with 141, that's usually enough to win, especially with how my team's been playing. I usually would expect him to take the win there. Just wasn't enough. It's a tough loss.
Absolutely.
Our next one here I'm still calling it the dildo bracket, even though it's not the dildo. So it will always be the dildo bracket to us here. With Sam versus Katie. Sam came into this favored 135 to 126. And we talked about the Thursday night matchup with the Niners and Rams being a very bad game, with many of the players getting limited points. So getting, I think it was 4.5 points from Brock Purdy on Thursday night. It looked like Sam was guaranteed to walk away with this one, but did not play out that way. Katie won 130 to 126 in a very close matchup. What did you think about these two?
Yeah, shout out to Katie for just starting a good team and picking the right people. I mean, James Conner, what a stud. 30 points in this win, like late in the season. That's really great. Jerry Jeudy's been a stud, but it really boils down to those number one receivers. Keenan Allen, DJ Moore together. Hard to start, two Chicago wide receivers, but together they had 35 points. Then you look at Sam's two number one receivers, Drake London, 14, Jaden Reed, 11. That's 25 versus 35. Those 20 points really, set Katie's team apart. A close match. We've been saying the entire year how good Sam's team is. This was a disappointing performance for her squad, but, shout out to Katie. That's a big win for her team.
For sure. And Laporta finally looks good the past couple of weeks. He's involved, 7 receptions, 111 yards. That's fantastic. 18 points with no touchdown that's what we expected them to do all year long. And it's nice that, at least for her sake, that he showed up now and she won't be in the losers bracket there. And we're not doing awards this week on this one with everything we're getting into. But usually if somebody was starting 2 Bears receivers and one of them was Keenan Allen, I'd say, okay, you need to rethink of your life, assess your life choices here, because that's usually a bad decision. But this time it paid off. It worked out well, especially against the Vikings, which is usually a very good defense. It's easily would have been a shaky start for me, but it worked.
Totally.
On to the playoffs. First one here was Alex versus Brett Johnson, with Brett favored to win 146 to 132. And the opposite happened. Alex won 152 to 123. Looking at Alex's team, he was just fine, to be honest. I didn't see anything here that looked fantastic. But Devontae, massive game. It just seemed like it seemed like he wasn't doing great when the day started, and all of a sudden, it's like massive touchdown reception, another 40 yards, and he gets stopped on the one. It's like, oh, bummer. He's not going to get his touchdown here. Then they give it to him again for 1 yard. So the guy couldn't be stopped. Just it was constant points for Devontae.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think there's a lot of people like the weird thing about Brett's team is there's always been somebody on his squad that has just, won the week and been the person that you wanted to start, whether it's Kyler, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyrone Tracy. Like those guys have always just outright won people weeks. And I will say more things about Alex's team when we get to the playoff preview, but just a up and down solid run from his entire squad. And yeah, that's the kind of thing that you hope for from Devontae Adams, that you hope that he just brings that giant number from time to time in a year. So I think that we've talked a lot of shit about Alex's team, and this year or this week in general, he really was seeing the breadth of his team succeed.
I have two last comments on this one. We talked about cowards. Alex is the only one of you that's not a coward. He traded for a player that was injured and a receiver, and gave up somebody who is very good in James Cook with good keeper value, with him being a sixth round player. So there was a lot on the line for him on this one. He just recognized when we were talking that it's a huge risk. If Robinson's healthy, it looks great for me. But no guarantee that he was going to be back anytime soon. And is this injury going to linger? So it was 100% one of those shots that paid off for him on this one. And then for Brett, Justin Jefferson looked good. So it's one of those trades, again, that he gave up pieces that ended up playing well for him. But Derrick Henry, 6 points. He was supposed to be the running back one of the week. The 35-14 was the final score.
Like, not it.
You can't believe, if you told me that's the end of the score and he got 6 points, I'm like, so Derrick Henry got a concussion, like the second play of the game, and got knocked out. Like, that's what I would assume. But the game plan just somehow, Andrews got the first touchdown, somebody else got the second one, and then Derrick Henry was out. They didn't use him. It was all Justice Hill the rest of the way, because they just recognized that, let him rest. We don't need him, which seems crazy. Usually just be feed him the rock and let him put up 40 points. And then Chase, again, 18 points. It's weird seeing red next to his name that he missed his projection based on how he's been playing the past month. Chase is a scary player, dude. Like when I was playing, I played against Chase in a different league, and I had to play him back-to-back on back-to-back weeks, and it was not fun. I did not enjoy it. So,
Jamar, it was probably 2 years ago. Jamar Chase had like a 52 in the fantasy championships, and I was very lucky in another league that I had him, and it was just like, what do you do? How do you beat that amount of points? Like, he's the kind of guy that you can just put in your lineup, and worst case scenario, he's 15 points. Best case scenario, he's the greatest. Like, he's going to be the kind of person that if he's not kept next year, he's going to be one of the top 5 picks.
Oh, he's being kept. 100% he's being kept. He's got one more year of eligibility. There's no way Brett's letting him go. I think he's a third round pick.
Do you know what pick he's getting kept at?
I believe he would be the third or fourth.
Oh my God. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Nothing. No way.
And even if it's one of those things that when he becomes a first round pick, it just depends on how that person finished, whoever owns him. Because he's going to be a top 3 or 4 pick regardless. And it's like, if they won the championship the year before with him at the 110, there's value there. They might have somebody better. But still, like, he still will be a worthwhile keeper there if he didn't have anybody else at that point.
I mean, it's wild because the Bengals aren't good, but both Burrow and Chase are very good. And to be honest, like, T. Higgins is also very good in that offense.
Yeah.
As someone who benefited from maybe his worst game, like the outlier game in his season, a couple weeks ago.
Right. I looked up Chase. He's going to be a 4th round pick next year.
Wow.
So that's great value there. I think the only better value is Amon-Ra, who's much later.
All right, let's move on to Max and Danny real quick. I feel like Danny has been commenting on his doom the entire time, but, Josh Allen with 41, Jonnu Smith with 19. Not to say that Danny's team did not do a good job, but Max's team is the boogeyman. He is definitely the one that he's got a lot of people that put up a lot of points consistently on a weekly basis. And then with David Montgomery's injury, that Jahmyr Gibbs 28 number seems to get a lot bigger going forward. So a rough matchup for Danny in the early rounds of the playoffs, but Max's team looks really scary going forward.
Absolutely. And we talked about Brett's been calling his team the boogeyman all year, and calling himself the boogeyman that nobody wanted to face. Boogeyman 1 is dead, and Max has stepped straight into that spot at this point.
Truth.
Just looking at his team, he's gotten hot at the right time. All these players are putting up big numbers. Kyren Williams is supposed to be one of his best players and had one of the worst performances on his team this week, which is absurd when your running back 1 puts up 13, and that's what you're upset about. So also the crazy thing is he has 183 points, but got 9 points from a kicker and defense.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't happen. Usually your kicker's putting up 8 or 9, same with your defense if you pick the right one. So it's like, this could have been a lot worse. This could have been a 200-point game if his kicker was halfway decent. And it's absurd to think that that's what this team could be. It's a 200-point scoring team.
I will say, as somebody who got a first-round bye, I am very excited to be missing both Lizzie and Max on my way to the championship matchup. Yep. I am happy to lose to Alex, as I will say when we get to the playoff preview. But that being said, if my team is able to defeat Alex and have to meet one of those two people, man, those teams have been great all year long.
Well, let's hear a quick word from a therapy service that's definitely going to be consoling Sam for missing the playoffs. And then we'll get into quick waivers and the playoff preview.
Did your fantasy football team look like a potential number 1 seed, but you lost 3 straight games and missed the playoffs? Are you haunted by the ghosts of constantly being matched up with the team that got hot each week? If so, Fantasy Football Therapy is here to help. Our experienced counselors understand the unique challenges and frustrations of fantasy football. We offer a safe and supportive space for you to process your emotions, gain perspective, and develop coping strategies. Our services include group therapy. Connect with other fantasy football fans who have experienced similar setbacks and find support in a shared community. Fantasy football strategy coaching. Receive expert advice on how to build a more competitive team in future seasons. Don't let the pain of another fantasy football heartbreak define your year. Fantasy Football Therapy can help you heal, grow, and come back stronger than ever. Because even the best teams need a little therapy.
All right, Sam. Well, sorry you lost 3 in a row to miss the playoffs here, but hopefully you'll get over it, come back next season strong, and maybe you'll have a loser's trophy for yourself. We'll see how that one plays out. So, waivers, Brett. We chatted about this in the group chat here. Lizzie keeping 2 running backs on the year? How do we all miss this? How did nobody see that she had no depth at running back?
I think I looked at her squad a bunch of times, and her bench was just full of guys that I wanted on my team. Her backlog of wide receivers was absolutely incredible, and her starters at the running back position were almost infallible. And so losing David Montgomery, I can understand where it's like, oh, shit, I now need to replace a pillar of my team. It's like losing Josh Allen at quarterback, or me losing Alvin Kamara. So when it comes to waivers, and you see that she picked up 3 new running backs in situations where they could be the number 1, could pop off. I think as we were talking beforehand, she had a ton of fab budget, and this week she's spent it. Like, this is, if you have a really good team, hoarding that budget in order to find the right person and find the space. Like, the only consolation that I'm taking in this whole thing is the fact that I picked up Jerome Ford last week, because she could have spent a gazillion dollars on him now that Nick Chubb is hurt, and put somebody who was absolutely going to be the number one on her team with Kendre Miller and Javonte Williams. Like, those guys might be good, but if her and I are to meet in the championship, like, we are going to be butting heads with secondary running backs that are like kind of there, kind of good, kind of rough, and that makes me feel a lot better.
I would have loved if the league just decided, she's the defending champ, we're picking up all the running backs, she gets nothing, and gets to go in with, a third string running back. That would have been hilarious, but it would have been a real dick move for the playoffs at this point. So in a way, I'm happy that she had plenty of fab to go spend it all on her guys, get some people, field a decent team, call it a day. But I would have laughed if it happened.
I would have loved to have submitted some sort of chaos in there. I just don't have the fab budget to do it.
Yeah. So it's all right. It's what it is. She had lots of fab. She could outbid anybody if she wanted to. But I don't know. I think maybe happier for our league that we didn't group collude to block her from the running backs here. So
totally.
It's all right. All right, let's get into the playoff preview here, and we'll talk more about Lizzie's questionable running back choices in a bit.
Let's go.
All right, so let's do the dildo bracket first. Chris versus Sam. Chris is favored 136 to 116 currently based on the projections, but obviously Sam's going to change once they figure out if it's Sharps or Walker playing, and then she'll probably end up at 126 when it's all said and done with the projections, and she makes her updates there. But still, Chris being favored is not something I would have expected 5 weeks ago. If we're talking Chris versus Sam, I would assume that Sam's going to stomp Chris, and Chris is coming home with the loser's trophy. But it's looking like the opposite right now. What do you think about these two?
Is this the poop trophy?
Yep, this is it.
Woof. No, I am going to be really interested as to how this plays out, especially with how successful Drake London was in his last game. I'm not sure Bucky Irving is going, like, oh my God, there's so much chaos that exists in this. Garrett Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, Bucky Irving, Isaiah Pacheco, Zach Charbonnet or Ken Walker, Patrick Mahomes' ankle. Like, this is going to be a really wild one. It'll be really interesting to see who comes home with the poop in that space. I think it is much closer than the 20-point spread that Sleeper is giving it for sure.
I would agree. I mean, looking at this, you mentioned Bucky Irving and London. I think Bucky Irving against the Dallas defense is a huge benefit for Chris here. Yes, he's hurt. He's been fighting something off, but it doesn't seem to matter. He's still putting up crazy numbers every week and looking good.
He runs so hard.
It's one of those guys who was a player who shouldn't have been good, but somehow just made the most of his opportunity, and it's working well with the roster they have. So my gut feeling that if Chris is going to win this, it's going to be a big game from Bucky Irving, probably a big game from Sutton, because I think Sutton was pretty slow last week, if I remember right. Didn't do anything special.
Yeah.
I feel like he's got to bounce back on him. And then Jacobs on Monday night. Jacobs has been a freaking beast, man. It's just feeding him the ball, letting him just jam it down the defense's throat and scoring touchdowns. It's been a crazy run for him. And I'm looking up the stats right now. Since their bye week. Oh, no, not even that. He's been good since week 7. 20 points, 25 points, 12 against the Detroit defense. And then 23, 28, 21, 24, 21. That's absurd out of a running back. A guy who's not supposed to be a number one overall level talent. Like if I told you those numbers and you told me that was Saquon, I would have believed you, because like that's how good Saquon has been this year. And maybe a bigger spike game than the 28 we saw against the Niners, but he could very easily just put up 3 touchdowns against the New Orleans defense with how bad their offense is. It could just be, we're ahead, Jacobs gets it. I mean, that could be a crazy Monday night ending for Chris, like being behind by a lot and getting 35 from Jacobs to win the matchup. That wouldn't shock me at all.
It was wild how much Josh Jacobs ran over whoever it was. Like it seemed like he was unstoppable in the Packers offense the last time he was on the field. So I totally get it. Tim, why don't you walk us through your matchup with Katie?
Oh, that one doesn't matter. We don't even need to
get come on. Hey,
it doesn't matter.
Still got to do it. Are you going to win or are you going to lose? Come on.
All right, fine. I didn't even write any notes for this because this one, it legitimately doesn't matter, because the way we have our brackets set up for the lottery, we have the same odds no matter what. Because at this point,
hey, Tim, you play to win the game.
I get it. Fine, Brett. I will look at my team. My team is illegal. I've got an IR player in IR that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's going to be a close matchup. I don't like starting Bo Nix on Thursday night. I should be playing somebody else, but I'm staying off waivers. My matchup doesn't matter. So I'm going to play with who I have and go with it. There's definitely some, I think if my team's going to play well, it's going to be Lamb playing well on Sunday night against Tampa Bay.
So I think you replace Bo Nix, or you don't replace Bo Nix with Anthony Richardson. I think that you replace Sincere McCormick with Cedric Tillman, and I think you lose this game.
I'm probably going to flip Odunze in there instead of Tillman. I don't trust DTR on that team to target him, so DTR is not getting my trust.
Is he starting over Jameis?
Yeah, they benched Jameis.
That sucks. Yep. Jameis is so much fun.
I know. So for me, it's either Quentin Johnson or Odunze. And I have a feeling I'm going to go Odunze because the Detroit matchup, it should be high scoring and there should be passing happening. I don't like it. That's what it's going to be.
For sure.
And, maybe at this point there is everyone's gotten their players. I could go raid waivers at this point and snag McMillan. And roll with him and hope for it. And maybe that's what I do. We'll see. I can grab him tonight before anybody sees the podcast, probably. And then be good to go.
All right, let's move on to games that matter. Let's talk about Lizzie versus Max. As somebody who will eventually pay the winner of this game, why don't you walk me through what you see between these two?
So on these two here, it's more being hot at the right time. We talked about Max's team is absolutely hot. This is the high point for Max this season. His team's performing better than they ever have. And Lizzie is, I think, at her lowest point, just based on the injury she has for her team. We talked about Montgomery being hurt. Saquon's hurt.
that's the biggest one.
No, he's out for the season. Like getting a 0 from him going forward, that's rough. That she's going to be. We'll talk about the waivers that she picked up in a second here for it. But Barkley being hurt, that's awful for her. Like, and I think that wasn't really announced during the game, but he's hurt with something, and they gave a lot of work to Gainwell and let Gainwell get the touches. So if Barkley is hampered by something, I imagine that the Eagles have their division's locked up. They're good. They're gonna get the whatever NFC East spot. So is he going to be worked a lot? Probably not. I mean, even if he's out there, he's not going to get his massive workload and massive points. Maybe 15 at the most. I see a lighter day for Barkley, and that's not what you want in the playoffs, obviously. So I think it's just timing is bad for Lizzie. Who do you think she starts as her second RB? She picked up 3. What's your gut?
I think you start Kendre Miller, hoping Cabrera hoping he takes the Kamara minutes. That being said, I think there's a world in which Barkley runs all over the Commanders. Listen, these are semifinalists. Both of these teams are very good. That being said, like, I don't know. I'm so glad that I don't have to play either of these teams going forward. It brings me an intense amount of joy because there are so many people on both these teams where it's like, this person is going to have 50 points this week, and I don't have to deal with that in either sense. So I'll see you in the championship, and I will happily enjoy my $100 while you get your $300, and that's the end of it.
So for Lizzie, we talked about, you mentioned, you said Kendra Miller is who you thought she's going to do. I think there's no way in hell she can roll the dice on Kendra Miller. That's the Monday night game. And what if Kendra is the backup? What if Alvin Kamara does play? Like, you can't be in your playoff. I mean, she's going to start Javonte. She has to start Javonte, and she's going to hate it. And he's going to put up 8 points, and she'll be pissed off that he scored 8 points.
I'm going to start Jerome. Tim, I'm going to start Jerome Ford over Alvin Kamara, and I'm going to hate it because how can you start Alvin Kamara, who might be hurt, in Lambeau? And it's like he could have a million check down catches and score 70 points because he's Alvin Kamara and that's what he does.
Right.
And at the end of the day, let's get to the next matchup.
All right, yeah, this is yours. So this is you versus Brett, or you versus Alex here. And as of now, I should double check and see what you guys are actually, who you're starting. But you're both at 131 projected, which is surprising. It's going to be close, it looks like.
Okay. I've thought a lot about this segment because I feel like we have talked a lot about Alex as he is not worthy of being the best team in our league. That being said, if you look at Alex's team, he has done the best job of weathering the storm of anyone in our league. If you look at his bench, he has dealt with Travis Etienne, Nick Chubb, Tyler Lockett, and Deebo Samuel, while also dealing with Kyle Pitts. That's 5 people that he expected to be huge contributors onto his team that have given him fucking nothing. And yet he is still in the semifinals of our league. So at 8-6, this dude has absolutely crushed it as it pertains to team building and waiver picking in our league. Mad respect to him.
Well, don't forget, his team would have been a lot better if he didn't trade Justin Jefferson for Flowers and Deebo. Because Flowers has potential to blow up. He could have big games and be huge. He hasn't the past few weeks, and Deebo is worth a 0 at this point. Like, you can't play Deebo again.
That's hilarious because both of those guys have sucked a lot. But still, he has done a very good job of team building. And the biggest issue I have with my own team is I feel like I have a ton of really good players that if I were to play my optimal lineup, I will absolutely win both this week and next week. But my ability to choose the optimal lineup is going to be very, very, very difficult. Like we just said, do I take Alvin Kamara, who's a better running back than Jerome Ford, at Green Bay, or do I take Jerome Ford at Cincinnati? Both of those things have their own pluses and minuses. Tua versus the Niners in San Francisco, or Jared Goff at Soldier Field. That's a difficult 1-2 to make. And so I think that my entire fate in this league is based on my ability to pick the right people going towards the playoff. Like, I feel like we are going to go into the semifinal and the final, and if I end up winning, it's going to be like, wow, Brett really chose the best people to win him the championship. And if I get fourth, it's going to be like, wow, Brett really sucked at picking the right people in order to get him to the championship.
Yeah.
And that's fantasy football, baby.
And I'm looking at your roster, and you have some tough choices to make for sure. I don't like your quarterback situation at all. I mean, you see the little weather notifications next to
Jared Goff had 40 points last week.
I know, but I don't like
chose
Chicago in
Tua.
December.
That's the thing. It's like I put Tua in my starting. Like, I am so glad that I had the bye last week because I started Tua, who had 4 points, versus Tua that had, or Jared that had 40. Like, I started Amari Cooper, who had 0, whereas I could have started Brian Thomas, who had 30.
Yeah.
Like, I am in this very, very weird place because my whole fantasy football strategy over the last 10 years has been fill out your top side group with a unfallible quarterback through defense set. And playing this 10-team league, I have run into this place where it's like, wow, my team is really good, but it's fully replaceable from top to bottom. Like, I'm spending all of my money on Baker Mayfield because Lizzie has dropped him. And so
you're not going to get him.
The reason that I'm doing that is because I really don't want to have to start Jared Goff against my 49ers.
Well, the reason you're not going to get him is I was talk to somebody else who I know dropped more than you own.
Balls!
So,
but I'm just saying, it's like that sort of decision-making where it's like, do I start Alvin Kamara in Lambeau or do I start Jerome Ford in Chicago?
Yeah.
Do I start Jonathan Taylor, who dropped the ball at the goal line and his coach will obviously not trust him? Or do I start Anthony Richardson, who somebody probably is going to drop in the next day because he sucks dick?
Oh, you want me to drop him for you?
Yeah. Yes, please.
That sounds like collusion.
I'm just saying. It is a nightmare where it's like I would like to give Alex his flowers because we have said a lot of things about his team building over the last 10 weeks, and he has come into the playoffs with a team that is both really, really good, and when you look at his bench, you see the progression of what that looked like to get him where he is, and that team is fantastic.
In our defense, he was called fraudulent. That's been the term floating around. In our defense, his points for was not looking great for a long time, and his matchups were convenient on who he had. So his ranking that he had of sitting number 1 in the league, he came back to earth. He was sitting at number 1 for a long time by a wide margin, ended 8-6 in the 5 slot. That's where he belonged the whole time. I'll just say it as it is. That's probably where his team should have been. He was the 5th best team in the league based on performance. It's changed. I'll give you that. I think he's turned it around a bit with some of his moves, and his players are getting better at the right time. So in terms of what he's doing today, I think he's one of the better, obviously one of the top 4 teams. No doubt about it. I don't think he should have been number 1 all year long, though. So that's all
fine.
I'm saying.
That's totally fine. And I completely agree with you. I just think that he has weathered a lot of storms. You expect Nick Chubb to come back and be a stud. You expect Travis Etienne to be a stud for you all year long. You expect Tyler Lockett to be a stud for you all year long. You expect a trade for Deebo Samuel to work out for you in the long term. And all that shit did not work out for him, and he's still in the semifinal.
Yep.
The one thing that makes me angry is he's about to start Dalton Kincaid against me, and that shit makes me want to kick him in the teeth.
Yeah, I think you're just fine, though, because New England has a decent defense, and I think that it's going to be, I don't know, this is just a general comment. I think the projections look incredibly inflated this week. 10.7 points all Dalton Kincaid? What? Come on, that just seems like way too much. The guy's put up 9, 4, 7. And his best week of the year is 13. 13.1. I mean, I don't see him getting 10. I see him like 3 receptions and the ball going somewhere else, and then running the ball with James Cook all game long.
I really struggle with the projections because like somebody like Tank Dell, who you traded to me, hasn't had more than like 8 points in a given game all year long, and yet the projections are still like he's going to have 14 points. It's like no, he's not, guys. Like he's not there. He's not what you think he is going to be. And so I think it takes a lot of like fantasy mindset to be like, hey, all of the things that we lean on, the Yahoos, the sleepers, the fantasy pros, like they really don't, like they're just working off of algorithms. They're not really paying attention to the games. And so I think like the snap percentages and the target numbers, like those are so much more indicative of somebody's success than what the projections say. So like we look at this and we say me and Alex are 50-50 to win this matchup. And I think ironically, this is absolutely 100% because you look at Jared Goff, and Jared Goff he has thrown 5 interceptions and like 125 yards in a loss and given you like 7 points. And then at the same time, he played the Bills and put up 45 points in a win. Jalen Hurts could run for 3 touchdowns and absolutely swing a matchup. And so like the 50-50 of this lineup, as you look up and down, I think is the best microcosm of that.
I think you're right. And the last thing I want to say on this one is it looks like Alex has this perfect roster set. And the way his bench sits, it's pretty clear that none of those guys deserve to be in a starting spot on his team with the way it's currently constructed. I think that he's set. My opinion for you is that you bench Hunter Henry and put Freiermuth in that spot. And I know the projections say it's lower. I see that being a higher scoring matchup where Pittsburgh's going to need to do some stuff. And somehow Freiermuth has been in the end zone 3 weeks in a row.
So, Tim, it's funny that you say that because 100% the way that I constructed my team was just to make me feel better about the projections. But I am absolutely going to replace Alvin Kamara with Jerome Ford and Hunter Henry with Pat Freiermuth going forward.
Yeah.
And the problem is that's going to move this projection to Alex being like a 55 or 56% favorite. And it just like that just like structure bothered me. The problem that I see, and I think you'll agree with this, is like because we're moving towards a week where games start on Wednesday, I think that will influence a lot of people where they're like, oh, I don't want to be the one that's like losing the matchup. And then they'll lose out because the timings are so unstructured. And they'll be like, oh, I wanted to be like a 56% favorite, but then Alvin Kamara doesn't play on Sunday. And your backup ended up playing on Wednesday, and that's the problem that you run into.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. And it's hard decisions, and I know you're going to be sitting here stressing about it from all week long. That's just what it's going to be. You're already stressing about it, but you'll have
the nice thing is I have already stressed about it and made my decisions. I will continue to go back to the fact that like looking at Alex's team after he beat Brett, Brett's team was absolutely fantastic and had some super heavy hitters and a lot of people to be afraid of in the first round of the playoffs. Like I'm very excited that I don't have to deal with Jamar Chase and Derrick Henry and those sorts of people with the Brett Johnson's team. But when I looked at Alex's team over the last couple of days, it is super duper cool that he has been able to just like weather the storm and put together a squad that is super well done and absolute killer. And like, I really want to beat him. I think I will beat him. But at the end of the day, like his squad is, I feel like we've said a lot of bad things about it, said that he doesn't deserve to be one of the top teams. And yet being in the top 4 and looking at his squad, it is well deserved for sure.
I don't think he listens to the podcast anyway, so I don't think he's a clue what we said about his team. So,
what a bitch!
Alex, you're going to lose. Yep, you're going to lose.
Fuck that guy!
All right, we talked about this one a lot. So let's end the wrap-up on yours here. What I want to do, though, is call your shots on these matchups in 1 minute. Who's our loser? Who loses the dildo bracket and comes home with a loser's trophy? Who's that?
Okay, wait. Who are the two people?
Chris and Sam.
Oh, Chris is getting the dildo trophy. Sam is winning. Katie is going to beat you for sure.
We don't care about that. Let's care about the final results. Chris and Sam. Sam wins. You versus Alex. Who wins that one?
Me, obviously.
And then Brett or Max versus Lizzie.
Shit. Max.
So championship, you versus Max. Who takes it?
Max.
I agree with you in the championship the same way. I think you're going to beat Alex. I think Max is going to beat Lizzie. I think Max is going to take it all. I think Chris smokes Sam in the losers bracket. Like 150.
I think that I will beat Alex. Max will beat Lizzie. And then if I were to have played my optimal lineup, I would have beaten Max, but I will not pick my optimal lineup. And Max will beat me because his top level is better than my top level.
As of right now, I probably agree with you. And that's why I think that Max is probably the favorite to win right now. It's going to take some duds from his players for you to win. I think it'll be a good matchup, though. I really don't think that either of you is going to put up below 135. I think we're going to see a 145 plus matchup from both of you in the championship. Is my gut feeling. Yeah, it's going to be a good matchup for sure.
It's going to be really fucking hard to try to cheer for the Lions to absolutely boat race the 49ers. That's really going to suck.
But you're going to have to. And hey, it's better for you too because you get a better draft pick. So cheer for the draft pick, cheer for the long term, and cheer for making money.
How do I get a better draft pick?
The Niners do if they lose.
Correct.
You don't want them to win. I'm going to lose.
I might get a better draft pick in this league draft.
No.
That's not okay.
Nope.
Somebody trade me your 3rd overall draft pick because I'm taking Jamar Chase.
Well, you're going to have to fight Brett for that one because he's not going to be available to draft. And it's going to be... Yeah, it's not... The balloons aren't popping up for you today. I don't know why. Usually thumbs up and the balloons fall down, but it's all right.
Dude, they told me that Chrome blocked my fun things.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a real bummer.
I know.
Well, that's all right. Thermo Fisher, thank you for making us not have fun on our podcast here, but it's all right. All right, so we're at an hour and 3 minutes, Brett, and maybe a little bit less than that. And we skipped stuff tonight, but we were just chatty Cathy's. And I enjoyed it, so it's all right. Everybody loves our feedback and loves our very good, perfect analysis that is indisputable.
Tim, I would just love to say that it's really nice that this podcast consisted of somebody who is in the top 2 of our league and somebody who is in the bottom 2 of our league. So thank you for providing the perspective from the bottom, and I am happy to provide the perspective from the top, especially when it comes from 2 years of already being in this league, being literally last and second to last. The view from the balcony is It's sweet, to say the least.
I would love to pull the scoreboard and come and say that I had the most championships in this league. And also, I'd have to redo some math here. I had the winningest record going into this season since we converted to Sleeper, and I won some of the championships back when we were on Yahoo. I think it's pretty safe to say that I have at least the top 2 all-time record. In our league.
Sounds like a lot of excuses.
It's a down
Tim.
year, all right, Brett? Sometimes players get hurt. You've seen the lineup.
It's fine.
That's how it is.
It's fine. Enjoy your poop trophies from here on out. That's
Brett. This is really good. This is really a conversation coming from the guy who got last place and second to last. But I love the banter. I enjoy this. This is great.
I did have to bail after 2 years because I did
you quit. You couldn't stick it out. I called everybody else the league cowards for not trading, but you were the real coward. But you had the guts to come back, acknowledge.
I came back.
You acknowledged your faults.
Number 1
flaws.
seed. Wherever it says.
Oh, it doesn't pop up on our screen. It's not here, but it's all right, man. Thank you for sticking on tonight. Thanks for going long. Hopefully everybody else enjoyed our bullshit. And we got one more of these, maybe. We'll see.
Good luck in the playoffs. Love y'all. See you next week.
But just don't beat Brett.
Don't be me.
Yep. See everybody.
Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum.